You're listening to Wordslinger Podcast, episode 141, Thrillers and History Matters, with Steve Berry. This episode of the Wordslinger Podcast is brought to you by Draft to Digital. Convert your manuscript, distribute it online, and get support the whole way at drafttodigital.com.
It's the Wordslinger Podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented pants optional, Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger.
Wordslinger.
Hey everybody, this is Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger. Imagine that. So, thanks so much for tuning in. I'm not gonna lie to you. Pretty excited about this episode. I've been pretty excited about it for a while, and I'm sort of breaking a tradition. I do a lot of these interviews, and I stack them. Okay, and I have plenty of them set aside. And apologies to all of you I've talked to that I haven't published your interview just yet. I'm letting someone skip the line because on Monday. I talked about this. I hinted at this. I teased this a little last week, but on Monday, I interviewed author Steve Berry. Now, if you don't know Steve Berry, where you been hiding? What rock you living under? But he writes in the same genre that I write in, and that last week's guest, Ernest Dempsey, writes in, and the same genre that Dan Brown of the Da Vinci Code writes in. Steve Berry is a New York Times and USA Today and Wall Street Journal bestseller. So you're in for a treat. I talked to him about his career, but I also talked to him about he's got a historic preservation. It's not a business. It's like a charitable organization almost called History Matters, and we talked to him a little bit about that. So this was a fun interview. This was a chance to sit down with somebody that I've read all of his work. I've gone and watched numerous interviews on YouTube. I've listened to various podcasts. So it was good. It was a great opportunity to sit down with somebody who I respect and admire. Turned out to be a very interesting guy too. We did chat before and after the interview, and it was interesting. Here's a little tidbit for you that you're not going to get from the interview itself, but some behind the scenes. When I asked him to be on, he was happy to be on. I actually was approached by his publicist, and then when I brought him on the show, he asked me before we started the interview, so how long is this? And I said, well, I try to keep these under 45 minutes out of respect for your time. And I could almost see him go white over the video feed. He's like, that's 45 minutes. That's a long time. I hope you got plenty of questions. I'm like, I don't have any questions. I have no questions prepared. Because why would I make anybody feel better? So, but after the interview, I asked him how he felt about it, and he said it was great. And he was surprised, and he was happy that we talked about the writing. Because most people want to talk about just his books and what the books are about and that sort of thing. We actually talked about the craft of writing in this interview, so I think you're going to get a lot out of this. And I've delayed you long enough. Now stick around after the interview, and in the afterglow of hearing this chat with Steve Berry, I got some interesting industry news you're going to want to hear about. Some cool stuff happening, and some things we'll revisit as well. So do that. Hang out for that stuff after this interview. Hope you enjoy this. I'll just throw a legendary in there. The legendary Steve Berry. Excellent interview. See you on the other side. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Now today I'm talking to somebody that if you haven't read this guy, I'm shocked. I've read practically everything he's written at this point. And I've always been impressed. And as I told him when I reached out, it's the best bang for your buck. You can't get a better story about going to the movies. You'll pay you'll pay easily 4 times as much and not get as much entertainment and excitement out of it. So I'm talking with Steve Berry. He's a New York Times best-selling thriller author, and he's got a lot of other stuff going on, which I'm really interested in talking to you about, Steve. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Good to be here.
So you are, I've watched probably 1,000 interviews with you at this point. You have been researched more than any other guest on this show. Just because I started kind of feeling around, I was looking for other thriller authors who kind of, to find out their approach, find out their history, find out their philosophies. You got kind of an interesting philosophy. You've got an interesting backstory as to how you got into this. So first of all, you started as an attorney, right?
Yes, I was a lawyer for 30 years.
So at what point did you decide that you're going to switch from being an attorney to being an actual author?
Well, there wasn't a moment. It wasn't that moment. There was every writer I've ever met has a little voice in their head. And that little voice doesn't say write a bestseller and sell a bunch of books and do all that kind of thing. Right. It says sit down and write. I need you to sit down and write. If you'll sit down and write each day, I will hush. If you don't, I'm going to nag you to death. And I used to think that was a little crazy, but now I know that every single writer in the world has the same little voice in their head.
Right.
And for me, the little voice was there during the 1990s for 10 years, probably. Right. I didn't know what it was. I didn't understand it. Occasionally, I would listen to it. Occasionally, I would ignore it.
Yeah.
It is interesting. The phone rings right the moment we talk. Right?
That's it. Yeah, I pre-programmed that. Yeah, I reached out and had some people.
I've been here all day and it hasn't rang once. I didn't listen to the little voice in the 1980s. Yeah. I ignored it. And finally, in the summer of 1990, I decided to listen to it. We're going to take care of that real easily, see?
You know what I like about this? And I'm keeping this in the show. And you know why I like it? It shows authentic humanity, Steve.
This is authentic humanity.
We got real Steve Berry here.
I sit in this office. You can see behind me the office. This is where I write every day.
Yeah.
I literally sit here, and the phone may ring once a day, if that much. Usually once every 3 days.
Yeah.
And it just rang twice in 2 seconds.
So what are people calling you about when they're calling you?
That was a more simpler one. That was my daughter.
Oh, okay. Well, that's perfectly allowable. Do you need to take that? I'm not going to keep you from talking to your daughter.
She'll call back in a little bit. She usually FaceTimes.
Okay.
So sometimes she'll call. She's in college. I was telling you that finally in the summer of 1990, I listened to the little voice in my head and I sat down and started to write a book. And I realized then that the voice would go quiet and I know how to control it. Of course, it took me a year. I wrote a novel. And when I was done, it was 170,000 words long. In fact, I have it. It's right over here right over here near me. I keep that manuscript to this day.
Right.
170,000 word manuscript is pretty awful, by the way, just by definition, just 170,000 words. Right. So, and it's unintelligible. I mean, you read it, you just sort of cringe when you read it. It was horribly written.
Right.
But it's the greatest thing I'll ever write in my life. And that's why I kept it. I kept it to this day because I started it and I finished it.
Yeah.
90% of all writers do not finish what they start.
Right.
They don't finish it. But I did. I finished it. Well, what do you do then? Well, to keep the little voice quiet, I had to keep writing. And so over the next 12 years, I wrote 8 more manuscripts.
Wow.
And then 5 of those made it to New York publishing houses. And they were rejected 85 times. I made it the 86th time 12 years after I started. So it was a very long process for me to get published.
So once that hit, though, and this was during, now I may have my timeline wrong. You can correct me. But this was during the time when another author let out some book no one's heard of, something about Da Vinci and codes. I'm not sure. But it was around that time that you got picked up. Is that correct?
I got published thanks to Da Vinci Code.
Yeah.
because the Da Vinci Code had been bought by Random House, and they thought they had something pretty interesting. They thought they had something that might reinvigorate the genre. You see, I wrote action, history, secrets. I wrote these kinds of things, which used to be called a spy novel.
Right.
Genre died in the 1990s after the Cold War. By 2003, it was gone.
Yeah.
Da Vinci brought it back, but in a new form. It became action, history, secrets, conspiracies. That's what I write.
Yeah.
So Random House had Da Vinci. They were looking for stuff to go with it, and that's how I got bought. I was on the 86th time. I was in the right place, right time, right story.
Right. Right. And how long, once it was accepted, I mean, how long before you start seeing like real success, or what you might consider real success from that sale?
Well, the book was bought in May of 2002. It wasn't published till August of 2003. So
Okay.
It was a long process there. Amber Room was my first published book, and it did very well. I mean, it didn't set the world on fire, but for a first novel, with the rules applicable at that time, it did very, very well. It did 44,000 hardcovers, which was a lot for that time.
Yeah.
It would be comparable today to doing 100,000 plus hardcovers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's comparable. It did very well. Romanoff Prophecy came next and did a little better. Third Secret did a little better. And then along came Templar Legacy, which was in 2006. And that's the book that changed me forever.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I have to thank you personally. I owe you and I owe Dan Brown. As soon as I can land Dan Brown, I'll tell him personally. But you created the genre that I write in and profit from. So, and I'm not the only one. I've got a whole line of guys who want to, get in line behind me and shake your hand, by the way. So thank you so much.
Towards Dan. I mean, I feel that towards Dan Brown because he brought the genre back to life, and I would have never made it but for him. So really, we all need to be shaking his hand. He's the one who brought it back to life. He gave me a chance, and then he gave you a chance, and he gave all of us a chance.
Right. Yeah. It's and it's been a lot of fun. This is a fun genre. The stuff that you write, it's I've been told my stuff is very similar. I'm going to take that as a compliment. But it's that kind of thing that I always go hunting for on Netflix, by the way. Like I'm looking for something, I want to see a Steve Barry novel adaptation soon. And I know you had some nibbles.
I get 20 to 25 nibbles a year.
Yeah.
Get about one or two every month. And, they all talk a good line, but nobody ever follows up.
Yeah. They're risky though. Don't you think because your books would be very expensive to adapt into?
That's the problem. My book would be, you have to go to those places because the places are part of it. No, my books would be very expensive to bring to the screen. Yes.
Yeah. What, so now most of us have we hear the advice that if you're going to write in this genre, you need to read in this genre. Who are some of the influences on you? Who are you reading that you enjoy from this genre?
I read all thrillers, but I'll be honest with you, I don't read as many as I used to. I only get to read about 6 or 8 a year for fun.
Right.
I read about 20, 25 books. Last year I did 30 books, which I read for blurbs, which are new writers who are looking for blurbs. So most of my reading is that kind of stuff. I don't get to read a lot of thrillers. I read, I read Dan, of course. I read Jim Rollins and, some of Cussler's, not all of them, but some of them.
It would be impossible to read all of Cussler's.
Yeah, it's too many books. But I like the Dirk Pitt books, and so I read the Dirk ones. There's, reading for fun is very difficult for me because I use around 400 sources for each novel, so I'm reading those. Right.
Yeah, that's one of the kickers of this business is we end up reading a lot of history, a lot of biographies. How do you narrow down what you're gonna pick as a topic? I mean, and you also go to places. You don't just read about it. It's not Wikipedia with you. You go and experience those places.
Well, I have to find a subject that is going to interest me because I'm going to spend 18 months with it. So it's got to be something that I'm interested in.
Right.
But it also has to be something that the reader's interested in.
Right.
And I have to project what the reader might be interested in 2 years from now because I stay 2 years ahead of myself. Right. So I'm thinking down the road. It also has to be something fresh, something novel, something no one has touched before. It has to be different.
Yeah.
It has to be something from the past that is real, that still has relevance today. So I have a lot of criteria that come into play, and it makes it difficult. Luckily I've come up so far with 18 novel ideas, and I've got ideas for the next 3 years, so I'm okay.
Yeah, you keep like a Evernote file or something on with ideas, or how do you track that?
A little more old-fashioned, just a file folder with a piece of paper with stuff written on it.
I would not expect any less from you, actually.
Very low tech.
Yeah, I want to say I have this picture of you opening a vault and taking out this dusty tome of research and ideas, classified, coffee stains on it.
Not quite that vault, but it is a cabinet right behind me over here that I slide out the file, and there are pieces of paper in there that are quite yellowed. Yeah, they've been in there for a long time.
Yeah. So, and why is that? I mean, are you just waiting for the right timing for them, or
just never bore fruit?
Yeah.
I throw them in there, and they're there, and maybe one day I can come up with something from them. And occasionally I do. Occasionally I'm able to take an old idea, but mostly they are just there, and they turn yellow.
Now, do you do short fiction? I can't recall.
Very little. I've done about 10 short stories. I'm short story challenged. It's very difficult for me to write short stories.
Yeah.
They're hard for me. I can do it, but it takes me about a month to write one. Where in a month I could write 30,000 words.
Right.
So they're not the easiest for me, but I have done them. Luckily, I've done several with other writers who are good at it, and so I'm able to springboard off their expertise.
What is it, do you think, that makes them more difficult? Is it just boiling everything down into a more concise format, or is there some other challenge?
Just the plot, getting that tight, concise little plot right there. It is challenging. I can do it. It just takes me time to sit down and think about it. And the problem is when I'm doing that, I can't write the novels. So I have to pick, because I know guys who can write a short story in an afternoon. They get the idea in the morning, they write in the afternoon, they're done. That's not me.
Right. Yeah. And you're very much you're a plotter. I know this.
My novels are very plot sensitive.
Yeah. Because and that's been a challenge for me my entire career. Is I've always been what they call a pantser, right by the seat of my pants. But since when I switched to thrillers, because I used to write sci-fi and fantasy, and when I switched to thrillers, it became very necessary to try to plot. I mean, I kind of do a sort of what I call a treatment, and that's the best I've been able to manage. How do you manage plotting?
Well, in the beginning, I plotted the first 4 novels all the way through before I wrote a word.
Mm-hmm.
And I would recommend to all writers that they have to do that for a little while, because it gives you what you need to know. I've done it now 22 times. I've written 22 manuscripts, so I can plot them now in my head, but I still plot on paper about 50 pages ahead of myself.
Okay.
I keep about 50 pages to 100 pages ahead of myself in plotting as I'm writing. And I generally have an idea where I'm going, and I always know the end before I start. So I know where I'm headed. And you have to know all of that, by the way. Otherwise, your rewrites are going to be even more numerous than they're normally going to be.
Yeah. And you're not just talking from the perspective of someone who writes for a living. I mean, you actually help you teach people how to do this.
I do. We teach it a writer's workshop as part of our History Matters Foundation.
Right. I was going to ask you about History Matters. I do want to hear more about that.
Well, we raise money for historic preservation by the workshops, and we've taught over 3,000 students in those workshops.
Wow. So that's have you seen some success stories come out of that?
Actually have. It's nice. It's nice to get an email from them and say I got published, or I got an agent.
Yeah.
We've actually had that happen. It's pretty cool.
That's going to be interesting when your name and one of your students' names are right next to each other in the New York Times or something.
That would be pretty neat. That would be pretty. I would love to see that one day.
That would be fantastic. So History Matters is now you've been to Houston. I'm in the Houston area. I don't know if I made that clear when we started talking. I'm in the general Houston area. I'm in Pearland right now. And you've actually been to the Houston area as part of History Matters. And every time I narrowly miss, I don't get a chance to actually hunt you down and introduce
We were just
myself.
there in November to the San Jacinto Museum.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
were there and did a History Matters event there.
Yeah.
We're coming back to Houston as part of the tour for the Bishop's Pond. We'll be there in March. We'll be back at Murder by the Book.
Murder by the Book. That is the place for thriller authors to show up. I got half a dozen coming here in the next 6 months.
I go there every year, so we'll be there. I think it's March 21. I think I'm there.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. Okay. I'll have to make sure I'm free to be. It seems like I'm at one of the conventions or something. I'm usually out somewhere speaking or something when you're in town. So I have to make some special arrangements.
My tour schedule is on my website. It's steveberry.org under events. It's all there if the viewers want to check out where I'll be. Okay.
And now, as far as History Matters, you and your wife, I've heard you say this numerous times. You guys come in and you don't charge them for your travel expenses or any of that. You guys come in on your own dime.
Yes, we pay our own way to go. We pay our own expenses, and all the money raised, every dime that we raise while we're there goes to the project we're there to support.
Yeah.
And so that's the whole point of it, to raise the money. And we've done about 85 projects, raised a little over $1 million.
What prompted you to start doing that?
Well, it was just something that dovetailed off what I write about, because I write about history, and we noticed, historic preservation was kind of falling apart all over the country. There's no money for it. I mean, there's no public money for it, and nothing there. So we decided, let's help out. Let's see what we can do. And so we help communities. We partner with them to try to raise the money necessary to fix their local stuff. We've done posters, documents, libraries, cemeteries, land, buildings, statues, you name it, we've raised money for it.
Yeah. I used to do documentary television for PBS, among others, and we did a whole series on historic aviation. And I know from personal experience how valuable it is for guys like you to come in and just lend support. Even just showing up to talk at these things is remarkable. So I can appreciate that. I want to thank you on behalf of everybody.
part of giving back. A lot of writers do it, and they find something that interests them, and this is what interested us.
Yeah. So you're in the Florida area.
St. Augustine, Florida.
Augustine, Florida. Why did you make the distinction? Is it?
Well, St. Augustine, Florida. That's the town.
Okay.
We're in Northeast Florida at St. Augustine. It's the oldest city in America.
Oh, is it really? I did not know that. Yeah. So, okay. Well, and did you always live there? You were a practicing attorney there as well, or?
Practicing attorney in Georgia, about an hour north of here, right over the border.
Okay.
In a little town called St. Mary's. And when we decided to move, we always liked St. Augustine, so we decided to come an hour south here, and that's where we live now, right down here. It's a lot of history here. This town's been here since 1550. It's the oldest continuous European settlement in North America.
So was that choice, did you decide to do that before or after you started doing writing full time?
Yeah, no, I started, it was 2 years after. I published in 2003. I did 7 books as a lawyer, and I quit practicing law in 2008. And then in 2010, we moved to Florida.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And now you were while you were practicing law, you were writing and publishing while practicing law.
Yes, I did 7 books. Well, I did all 8 of the ones that didn't, during the 12 years I was a lawyer. Then once I got published, I did the first 7 still as a lawyer. And it grew to the point that I had to choose.
Yeah.
It grew. I didn't set out to become a full-time writer and quit the practice of law. That really wasn't the goal. The goal was to shut the little voice up in my head.
Yeah.
That was the goal. And then it became, I think I'd like to be a commercial fiction writer. But again, I wasn't arrogant enough to think that I was going to be successful and be able to do it full-time as a living. I thought I would do them both. I'd be a lawyer and a writer.
Yeah.
But it just grew, and it grew, and it grew till finally in 2008, I had to choose.
Yeah. And I love that you said it that way because, most of my career, most of the, a lot of the authors I know who are making any money doing it, they started pretty much the same way. They had a day job and they figured I'll do the day job until maybe I make enough from the day job to quit and write, or the writing maybe takes off and finances my life or whatever. But it's kind of unusual for that to happen.
Well, you can probably, there may be 25 or 30 writers today who make a good living
Yeah.
writing.
Right.
It's a very difficult profession to make a living at, writing.
Yeah.
It's hard. I mean, particularly today. It was hard when I started. It's even harder today.
What makes it harder?
There's more competition. There's more stuff going on.
Right.
There's more places competing for everything. Prices have changed. Distribution has changed. Everything has changed today. So it's a much different world today. We didn't have ebooks when I started.
Right.
It was all very different. You bought books when I started in a bookstore.
Right.
That's where you bought them. You went to Borders or Barnes and Noble or Walden's or whatever. There's where you went to buy a book. You didn't go to Walmart or Target or BJ's or Sam's.
Yeah.
And Costco's and those places. You went to a bookstore. It was a whole different world then. Now it was tough. It's just tougher today.
Yeah. And I honestly do miss Borders and B. Dalton and Walden. I miss all those.
All gone now.
All gone. And I guess because they didn't put coffee shops in. I don't even know why. Amazon. Yeah.
Amazon changed everything because Amazon changed the pricing and also changed the delivery system.
Right.
And made it just so easy to buy.
Yeah. Yeah. So in light of the way that's changed then, I mean, how has your career changed? Because you were already publishing, you were already successful. How did it change your approach to the business?
Well, I have to be more aware of the business. I have to watch it every day because the business changes on almost a daily basis. I mean, it's something changing constantly all the time. Back in the very beginning, that wasn't the case. The rules were set and they were pretty much there, and those were the rules. Yeah. Not anymore. The rules are being thrown out every day and modified, and you have to keep up with that. A failure to keep up with that is fatal. Absolutely fatal. And I spend a lot of time keeping up with that every day. I'm lucky that my wife, Elizabeth, is very big in that. She runs a company called 1001 Dark Nights, which is in the romance genre and deals with marketing and the publishing of novellas in the romance genre. And so she's very aware of what's going on in the e-business. So I'm able to keep up with that.
Yeah, I'm jotting that down because I'm going to want to.
1001 Dark Nights. They've sold over 2 million novellas in the last 3 years.
Okay.
It's a very interesting group because it involves cross-marketing between these New York Times bestsellers in the romance business. They cross-market each other across their platforms, and it works wonderful in the romance business. Yeah. You can grow your readership and all kinds of things. It has no effect in the thriller business.
Yeah. That's my experience. I mean, and I work, so I among other things, I'm the director of marketing for Draft to Digital, which is an ebook aggregator. We deal with a lot of romance writers, and they are very savvy people.
Very savvy.
They're very experimental. And they're always on the cutting edge.
And the readership is very open. They read around 6 to 8 books a week.
Yeah.
The average thriller reader reads 6 to 8 books a year.
Yeah.
That's the difference. And you cannot get them to try something new. They have to decide that all by themselves.
Right.
Now, in the romance business, you actually can get them to try something new. You can. They're much more flexible. And this is not me talking. This is studies that have been done by the Codex Company, which is a big company that deals in the book business. Right. And they've done these studies, and the most difficult reader to try to attract is the thriller reader.
Yeah.
It is the most difficult.
But they're fiercely loyal.
That's the thing.
Once they're in. Yeah.
Once you get them, they're yours. They're yours.
Now, how are you attracting new thriller readers?
Well, as I said, it's extremely difficult. All I can do is I maintain a Facebook page. So I have a Facebook fan page We have a website, which is very good. We get around 500 to 600 sessions a day.
Yeah.
So those are people coming on, staying an average of about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's several hundred, that's about 200,000 people right there. So you're attracting people with those types of mediums. It's really the only way I can. When a book comes out, we do our marketing and we do the best we can with it. But again, very difficult to get a thriller reader to try someone new. They have to figure that out on their own, and they have to want to do it on their own.
Yeah, and that's the challenge. It's getting them to decide.
Impossible, in fact, it borders on the impossible, is what it does.
Yeah,
but
which is why it's so fun to do it.
Well, it's frustrating in some degree because there's so much to compete against and so much there, but you can only do what you can do. You do the best you can.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought up marketing. Marketing is a question that I get asked about a lot. And I like to talk to other authors and find out how they're doing it. And so you have a traditional publisher behind you, and I'm sure they have a marketing arm that does some things. But I know, and I'm sure you'll agree, that authors are essentially in charge of their marketing now.
Yeah, you are your own marketing director.
So what do you do to keep the marketing spinning?
Well, you have to set up your marketing campaign when the time comes, and we do that through advertisements that we put on dedicated websites, History Channel, Smithsonian Channel, places where my readers will be.
Right.
You want them to see the book. You want them to know it exists.
Right.
We spend a good bit of money on it. We probably spend somewhere between $75,000 to $125,000 on marketing.
Is that annual or monthly? I'm prepared for either.
For the book, when the book comes out.
For each launch. Okay.
Launch, probably in the $100,000 range is what we spend on. And because you've got to get it out there where people can see and know. There's a simple rule of marketing. If someone doesn't know it exists, they'll never buy it.
Right.
You have to know it exists. So we spend the money to do that. Yes. Yeah.
It's funny how that works. If no one's heard of you.
If no one's ever heard of you, they're not going to buy you. Now,
right.
The question is they have to see the book, and then they have to kind of go, well, that interests me. Okay, let me learn more about that. Let me see if that interests me. I can't trick them into buying it. I can't nudge them into buying it. They have to figure that out on their own. The trick is to get it in front of them.
Yeah.
Just get it in front. Now, the number one way that I market, because I've been around a while, is I market to my fan base.
Yeah.
That's my number one way.
Yeah.
So, I have a fan base. They did a study a while back of about 2 million.
Okay.
So I market to that fan base. That's where we go.
Would that be via like an email list or on your Facebook page, or how do you reach that fan base?
Exactly that. You do Facebook, newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
That's the two main ways that I do it: Facebook and newsletter.
Yeah.
I can connect to those people, and I can give them information, and I can have a dialogue with them, and I can let them know these are people who I've already got. They're in my orbit.
Right.
I just got to get them to go to click and buy. That's what I got to get them to do. I don't have to convince them. I just got to get them to click.
Right.
Where the new reader, I have to do both. I have to convince them that I'm worthy to be read, and then I have to get them to click. So
your group is already sold on you.
Yes.
So that work's done. So now it's just letting them know a new book's out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For a established writer with an audience, the number one way they sell books is market to their fan base. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. And that's what, I tell people that all the time. What's tough though for the new author is that they don't typically have that fan base. You had some, I don't even want to put it that way. I was going to say you had some advantages. You didn't have advantages. You had challenges that you had to overcome. Dan Brown made it a little easier for you to get in there.
Got me published, but he didn't. He gave me a wonderful blurb that helped sell The Amber Room, but the book had to stand on its own.
Right.
That's the problem. Your book has to, once it's out there, you're on your own.
Right. Still comes down to write a good book.
You got to write a story that they go, I like that. And then they tell their friend, and they tell their friend, And then when the next one comes out, they go, I like that last one of his. I'm going to read this one. And they say, I like that. Then the third one. By then you got them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they become a fan. And that's what you're after. You're trying to get them to be a fan. To do that, we have to churn out a product. And you have to churn out a product at least once a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most people are more than that today, but I only do one a year. That's all I can do.
Now you mentioned that you do like you'll get a hold of advanced copies and do blurbs. Are you, because Dan Brown's blurb helped you? Are you like taking authors under your wing in any way? And
No, I don't do that, because first of all, none of them ask for my opinion. They don't ask for my advice. So
I'll ask you. I'll ask you for your advice.
I don't just volunteer advice. And even if they asked, I'd be a little hesitant, because I'm not, teaching is a different animal. You have to be, you got to want to be taught.
Right. That's true.
You got to want to do it. I was taught in a very critical process. I was taught where I read my chapter out loud and then the others destroyed it.
Yeah.
They took it apart. And I was taught in a very tough environment. There was no, boy, that's wonderful, that's so great, but let me see if I can make it better. No, It was, no, that's here, let me take it apart.
Right.
So I learned in that environment, and I have to say I'm a little tough on folks when I do teach, because I don't tolerate, the obvious mistakes that none of us should be making. And there, unfortunately, in today's world, the vast majority of writers do not really pay much attention to the craft of writing. That's the last thing they think about.
Right.
And a lot of the books I read for blurbs are, a lot of them suffer from, craft deficiencies.
Oh.
Because they don't pay attention to that anymore. No one worries about craft, because Amazon has convinced us that you can sell a book for anything.
Right.
Price it at 99 cents, they'll buy it. It doesn't matter how it's written.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how good it is. And I don't adhere to the philosophy that a book is a book is a book. That's not true. That's like saying that a car is a car is a car.
Right.
Or a suit is a suit is a suit. So, a suit that there are different kinds of clothing. There's better grades. There's better everything. There is a difference in those things.
Yeah, there's a big difference between buying a suit off the rack and getting a nice bespoke tailor. Yeah.
A suit is not a suit, and a book is not a book.
Right.
And I heard this once years ago from someone who worked with Amazon. He gave a talk at Thriller Fest.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that from the podium. He says, to us, a book is a book is a book. And I asked him afterwards, I said, now you're telling me that a book written by someone who's never written a book before in their life with no training whatsoever is worth the exact same as a book written by Lee Child. Right. So you're saying they are identical in value. And he said, yes. I said, you can't really believe that, because you would be the only business on earth where that is true.
And it's just, it does not ring true. It does not compute, because the reality is you can release a book for 99 cents and it may sell very well, but it's not about that initial sale. It's about sustaining it, right? That fan base that you're talking about.
I'm putting a value on my intellectual property that is not correct.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest thing Amazon has done to the book world. They have devalued intellectual property.
Interesting.
Because they have said that a book is a book is a book.
Right.
And so they're all worth the same. That's not true. I don't agree with that. I've never agreed with that, because then otherwise a piece of luggage bought at a bargain basement store is exactly the same as a Louis Vuitton piece of luggage.
Yeah.
They're identical. It's a piece of luggage. Well, not really, because this other one's going to last you about 6 months, and this one's going to last you about 60 years.
Right. But then again, that's the longevity. Longevity is the difference.
There's a big difference in those products.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference between the guy who's never written a book before in his life and a Lee Child book who has written 20, or 22, and is one of the largest sellers of books in the world. So I don't agree with that. But Amazon has devalued intellectual property. And that's the biggest thing that has happened to us.
Yeah. So, okay, craft is the number one thing then that we should pay attention to. So where do you go to improve craft? Where do you start?
You have to teach yourself. Writing, there is no one that can teach you how to write.
Yeah.
But there are people that can help teach you how to teach you how to write.
Yeah.
I was lucky I found some people like that. They helped me learn how to teach myself. And people need to do that. But the problem is craft takes time. It takes years to learn how to craft.
Right.
People today don't want to mess with that. They just want to listen to the little voice. Let me slop it down. Let me get it out there. I'll sell it for 99 cents or I'll give it away and I've got a book out there. Well, that's wonderful, but and people will buy your next book too. You know why? Because it's 99 cents.
Yeah.
You know, now if I put a $14.99 price tag on that book, no one would buy it.
Right.
Zero. How many would you sell? Zero. Zero. That's how many.
But I sold it for $14.99.
but if you took Lee Child's $14.99 book, where he sells millions, and sell it for 99 cents, he would sell even more millions.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Now, seems to me, if I'm the guy down here selling for 99 cents, I'd take a lesson from that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of making a quarter a book, I'd like to make $4 a book.
Right.
Or $5 a book, you know. Why, you know, but there's a difference in quality. That's the difference, is the quality.
You brought up International Thriller Writers, and you're one of the founders of that.
I am. I'm one of the founding members.
Yeah, that is it's a remarkable group. They have a great conference. Mm-hmm. I'm planning to attend this. I'm going to try to come this July. Unfortunately, that conference always lines up with one or two other conferences that I'm already booked for, and it's tough for me to do it. But and this one's for me. Like, I go to the others for the authors. This one's for me. So I'm planning to come this July.
Summer camp for thriller writers, man. It's when we talk craft at Craft Fest, I teach at Master Craft Fest, which I teach all day on Tuesday with a group of 10 writers. Craft Fest is Wednesday and Thursday. Thriller Fest is Friday and Saturday. It's literally summer camp for thriller writers.
What does it take to sit in on your little masterclass there?
Craft Fest, $500.
Okay, all right.
It's $500. We charge $500 a head, and you get 8 hours, and we keep the class at 10 or under.
Okay. And
we have 10 of us who do it.
Okay.
10 of us who do it. And so it's a really intense day. What I do, it's probably the most intense day you will ever have in the craft of writing. It's a very intense day. And then I give you another half hour of my time sometime during the week so I can personally critique your work.
Oh, wow.
So we do that too. So
that's a bargain at $500 though.
All that money goes to International Thriller Writers. All of it is used to help keep International Thriller Writers going, and we donate our day. Lee did it last year. Lee taught a class last year. We have 10 excellent teachers who know how to teach an 8-hour class.
Right.
And keep it interesting during the day. So I get the published writers. So if you signed up, I would get you, because I teach the advanced class. So I get all the writers who have actually published.
Okay.
Usually about 8 who have published, somewhere between 8 and 10. I get all of those. And so I teach my class a little bit different because it's people who've already published.
Yeah. That's, that is a flat out bargain for $500, man. I mean, I know that's on top of the expense of attending and all that, but still.
Thriller Fest is not for the faint of heart. It's not a cheap conference.
Right.
But what you get for the Thriller Fest is different than any other conference you will go to.
Right.
We are not a readers conference. We are a writers conference. We are the genre coming together. We are a working thriller writer. 80% of our members are working thriller writers. Yeah. Now, we get readers who come, but we cater the conference to writers. And it's all about writing.
Yeah. It's a growth place. So,
It's for people right on the cusp, ready to be published.
yeah,
People who have been published.
yeah,
And we hold it in New York City at the Grand Hyatt because we're in the center of publishing.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
where we are. And we have every agent, publisher, editor, everybody in New York is there. And they come to Thriller Fest.
It's fantastic. Yeah. And the organization is great too. I mean, it's very helpful. Lots of resources. You get to, it is an interesting thing because I participate in a lot of different conferences, and some of them are genre specific, you know, like thriller writers, but you rarely get to connect with so many big hitters in those conferences the way you do it.
All. They're very accessible too.
Yeah.
Everyone's in one place. We don't have any secret rooms or places put off where people,
which I think is a shame. You should have secret rooms.
We don't have any secret rooms. Everyone is treated exactly the same. The only person who gets special treatment is the Thriller Master.
Yeah.
We honor each year. And this year it's George R.R. Martin is our Thriller Master.
Really? Oh, George is the Thriller Master.
He's coming
as if that guy needed any more attention.
No, but he agreed. He give the Thriller Master Award to someone who has altered the genre.
Yeah.
And has at least 20 years experience. And he
Okay.
is now this year's Thriller Master, and he agreed a couple of years ago to do it. So we're looking forward to having him. He's the only one that gets a little extra special treatment.
I can see it. He deserves it. I want the guy treated really well and pampered so that he sticks around and finishes the whole Game of Thrones
Should be
series.
done. I'm hoping by the book that he's working on should be done by then, I would hope.
That's what I hear.
So he'll be there on Saturday, and he does 1 hour an interview on Saturday, and then Saturday night is our big banquet where he'll be presented the Thriller Master Award.
Oh, excellent. All right. Well, look, I had promised you I'd keep this around 45 minutes. We're coming up on that, and I'll go ahead and wrap it up. I respect your time. Please stick around. You and I are going to chat for just 5 minutes more. Everybody else, I hope you enjoyed this interview with Steve Berry. If you didn't, what's wrong with you? But you can stick around. Now, right now, you're probably hearing the groovy theme music, and you may dance in place at will. And I'll see you on the other side with some industry news and other cool stuff you're going to hear. So thank you again, Steve, for being on the show.
Good to be here. Thank you.
All right. Take care, everybody. All right. That was my interview with Steve Berry. That's it. I'm wrapping up. That's the show's over, folks. No, I still have some bucket list stuff. I still got some folks I want to talk to. So I hope you enjoyed that interview. I love talking to. It's interesting to talk to successful authors from the traditional side of the industry. The perspective is very different, and I think in a lot of ways, there's a lot that everyone in publishing can learn from every other group. I believe that there is a hybrid model of publishing emerging, and I believe that those who are successful at self-publishing now will gain some of the advantages of the traditional world over time. But I firmly believe that the traditional world will start looking around and saying, these guys in the indie industry, they've figured some things out, and we're gonna look into doing it their way, and that's where I think that hybridization is going to come from. I think that at heart, Steve Berry is an indie author. He's got traditional contracts, he's got agents, he's got publicists, he's got all that stuff, all the things and all the trappings that you would expect from someone in the traditional industry. But his approach to marketing is very similar to that of successful indie authors that I know. He gets the need for that, and he gets the sort of ancillary marketing idea. I think his organization, History Matters, I believe. I don't think he has a selfish motive behind it. But I think that it is in part driven by his work. It means the preservation of the materials he uses for research. Without these things, he doesn't have that information to draw upon. But it also is a great way for him to spread the word about himself, about his work. He encourages other writers. That's very much an indie author mentality, to help other writers, and to help build careers and help them grow. So, I don't know. I just have this feeling I could probably kick back with this guy over some scotch and some cigars, and watch the sunset over the ocean somewhere, and talk the same talk I talk with guys like Ernie Dempsey and Nick Thacker and the like. I think we're in the same. I think we're all in the same pool. So, all that said, now I want to get into the industry news, because there's one brand new item I think you're going to love, and I'm revisiting a couple of things as well with a fresh take. But first up, Scribd reintroduces their unlimited plan. Scribd announced this week that it's bringing back its unlimited plan for audiobooks and ebooks, causing some buzz among authors and readers alike. This is a reboot of their previous attempt, and it looks like the service is learning from its mistakes. The reboot will allow Scribd subscribers to have access to an unlimited catalog of ebooks, audiobooks, magazines, newspapers, and sheet music for some reason. So, however, unlimited, quote unquote, may be a little misleading after users have poured through a certain unspecified number of books. They'll essentially be throttled and limited to books, quote, unlimited, the unlimited reading from a list of predetermined books. So these will include new releases. Basically, they'll be blocked from reading new releases and front list books. The sort of books that people actually want to read on demand, in other words. So this is a little bit like Netflix deciding to limit viewers to only a backlist of videos and then charging them extra to watch new releases. That's my opinion. So if you have a different opinion, or you'd like to weigh in on this, or you have some comments or questions, hit me up. Go to wordslingerpodcast.com, hit the contact button, and leave me some feedback on this. Apple has fired shots across Amazon's ebook bow. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Amazon and Apple and Amazon will likely be mentioned a lot in a lot of indie publishing news over the next year, as Apple starts eyeing Amazon's big steaming hunk of the ebook market. Now, not only is Apple retooling its book business with a redesigned app and a less everything name, they've also hired former executives from both Amazon and Barnes & Noble. So what's the game plan here? Is it, of course it's world domination. But I, for one, welcome our technological overlords, and I'm curious what you think about where Apple's going to take this business with these more aggressive moves in place. What's their strategy and what's their plan? My gut is telling me Apple sees an advantage in owning a bigger piece of that pie. Of course they do. But I think Apple is looking at Amazon and the way Amazon has operated over the past decade, and is deciding that there's something there worth cultivating and nurturing. My hope is that they'll retool their book business altogether, that they will actually come at this and empower the indie authors and indie publishers. I know that they'll be striking all sorts of deals with the traditional industry, but I think that they'd be wise to look at the indie author crowd and find ways to serve that group at a much higher level than Amazon's serving them. And I think that they could dominate. But you let me know. People are going to disagree with that. I know some really intelligent people who are going to disagree with me on some of these points. But that's okay. There's room for disagreement. I think that this is a good move for the indie publishing industry now. So you let me know what you think. Hit me up. Go to wordslingerpodcast.com. Hit contact. Let me know. You can even leave comments on the show notes page of this episode if you like. Audiobook sales are on the rise in a turn that is going to be good news for authors already invested in audiobooks as a sales channel. Sales showed an upward trend in 2017. In the first 3 quarters of 2017, audiobook sales rose 26.2%. Now, that's as retailers such as Google Play and others are starting to put more focus on audiobooks. It's likely we're just at a beginning of an upward swoop on this. And there are nowhere near the titles available in audio as there are in ebook. So this represents a great opportunity for early adopters, and this is a chance for you to carve a piece of that pie for yourself. So I'm curious now, how are audiobooks fitting into your current publishing strategy? Are you leveraging audiobooks right now? There is overhead. There's more overhead and cost to producing an audiobook, of course, than there is to produce an ebook. It's a less DIY friendly format, but that doesn't mean you can't do it that way. And of course, we have Draft to Digital and Findaway Voices. There is a path for the would-be DIY audiobook creator there to get not only your book into circulation, but to get a large worldwide circulation and distribution. I'm just curious about how people are going to use this. I would love to use audio more. It's a lot of work to produce an audiobook, which is why I haven't done it. I got enough lot of work type projects on my plate, but at any rate, let me know. Reach out. Give me some feedback on this. How are audiobooks playing into your strategy? I'd love to hear that. And anything else you got. Now, that's it for news this week. I hope these are useful. Let me know if they are or are not. I introduced this mostly because of the video version of the podcast, which if you're not watching, you can tune in. You can search Wordslinger Podcast on YouTube. You'll be able to find it and go subscribe and sign up for notifications there when you know a new episode goes live. The content there is essentially the same, but it's the intros and outros are different. So you may get a little more out of it, and it's a chance for you to see the Wordslinger in action and what I'm wearing this week or how I'm wearing my hair. Important things like that listeners want to know. Thank you for being a part of the Wordslinger Podcast. This episode of the Wordslinger Podcast is, of course, brought to you in part by our sponsors, Draft to Digital and KDP Rocket. You can check both those out. Go to drafttodigital.com/wordslinger where you can sign up, and I get a little bonus kickback if you sign up and make some sales to that channel. You can also check out KDP Rocket at bit.ly/KDPslinger, where you can take your content, get more readers, increase your Kindle rankings. You can take control of your content, rather. And, of course, subscribe to this show wherever you happen to be listening to it. If you're on iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play, go subscribe and share. And please, leave me a review. Go on iTunes, search for Wordslinger Podcast, write a review, and give me like 4 or 5 stars. And just say, I love the Wordslinger Podcast because blank, and fill in whatever your heart desires there. I would really appreciate it. And you can obviously support this show on Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/wordslingerpodcast, that will give you an opportunity to throw some dough my way. And any money I make from Patreon goes into the overhead of the show. So thank you so much for being a supporter. And I really do appreciate that. But my favorite way, and the way that I hope you'll choose, regardless of any other method, the best way to support me and my work is to go to kevintomlinson.com/books. Pick up something good to read, something thrilling to read. I like to bill myself as writing fast-paced, positive fiction. So if you're into that, I write archaeological thrillers right now. I've written sci-fi and fantasy in the past. I've even got a nonfiction book aimed at the author crowd, 30-day author, that you might enjoy if you're wanting to be an author, if you're not already an author. So go check that stuff out and share it with your friends. Write me some reviews on Amazon. Tell your friends, your family about it. I really appreciate it. And of course, while you're there, you can hop on my mailing list and you can get a free thriller, which I am, by the way, currently doing a little rewrite. I'm fixing some stuff that should have been fixed a long time ago, really, in the Coelho Medallion. So soon I'm going to have that uploaded. I'm nearly done with the rewrite, and I'm going to polish it up, give it a soft relaunch. I'm not really changing the cover or the title or anything like that. I'm just doing a little soft relaunch, letting people know that it's been updated. to fix some glaring errors that were an unfortunate leave behind the first time I released that book. That book still somehow won awards and became a bestseller despite its flaws, so I think we're pretty okay. But I thought everybody would appreciate having some of these things fixed. Some typos and that sort of thing, but there was also a really big plot hole. Just I've had a couple of people I've had a handful of people ask me about it, and then otherwise no one seemed to notice it, which I'm grateful for. But I'm fixing it. It's fixed. It's actually already fixed. Now I just got to finish editing the rest of the book. That's it. And I got it. New work is on the way, and I'm happy to talk to you about it. If you sign up and get that free book, you get on my mailing list. I just sent out an email today. I got thousands of people sent me an article or articles about the use of LiDAR to find lost Mayan cities, which is something that factors into my newest book, The Girl in the Mayan Tomb. So thank you for sending that stuff. I had, thousands. People hit me on email, social media, text messages, you name it. I had so many people tell me about this. So I think that's a good sign. I think that resonates with people then. They liked the idea. They thought it was interesting and intriguing. And I'm glad that I managed to include that in the book. So that's it for this week. Hope you enjoyed this episode of the Word Slinger Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to go subscribe to the show so you know when a new episode's released. Let me know what you thought of this interview with Steve Berry, and be sure to, if you do, reach out to the guy or anything, email him or whatever. Say, hey, I heard you on the Word Slinger Podcast with Kevin Tomlinson, and that'll help me out. It'll show the guest that it's having an impact. So, take care of yourselves out there. God bless you. I hope you have a safe and happy weekend ahead, weeks ahead, and I'll see you all next time.
Word Slinger.